The clock tower chimed a distant, forgotten hour, but for the soul caught in the ceaseless turning of the world, time had dissolved into a relentless current. It was not the loud roar of failure that brought you to this silent, sudden stop. It was the quiet, insidious erosion of your edges, the smoothing down of all definition, until you felt less like a person and more like a worn stone in a rushing river. You were built for motion, crafted for climb. You understood the geometry of ambition, the satisfying arc of effort meeting reward. Day after day you laced up the metaphorical boots, shouldered the unseen weight, and pushed against the invisible resistance of gravity and circumstance. You ran the marathon not for the finish line, but because stopping felt like a moral failing, a betrayal of the potential that hummed, sometimes painfully, beneath your skin. The world applauds momentum. It praises the grind, the early rise, the late departure. It hangs glittering trophies on the virtue of persistence, but rarely dedicates monuments to the wisdom of the withdrawal. And so you kept giving, to the work, to the people, to the expectation you had built around your own capability. You poured yourself out, cup after cup, believing the vessel was infinite, or at least that it would automatically refill overnight, drawing sustenance from the sheer force of your will. But the well runs dry. The first sign was not a collapse but a dulling. The vibrant colors of your purpose began to fade to muted grays. The problems that once engaged your intellect now felt like heavy, senseless objects you simply lacked the strength to lift. Joy, once a steady melody, became an off-key, sporadic note. You started forgetting why you started, only remembering that you must continue. The engine was running on fumes, and the sound of it became the only noise in your world, a grating, desperate sound of mechanical distress. You tried to ignore the subtle tremor in your hands. You pushed past the fog that clung to your mornings and thickened in your evenings. You convinced yourself that this fatigue was the price of greatness, the necessary friction that sharpens the blade. You drank more coffee, slept less, spoke faster, and smiled wider, hoping the performance of energy would somehow summon the real thing. But the body is an honest witness, and the mind a tired friend. They do not lie. They offer you signals, the tight knot in your stomach that never loosens, the shallow breaths you keep forgetting to deepen, the sudden, unwarranted sting of tears. These are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of labor. They are not indictments, they are communiques from your deepest self, screaming for a ceasefire. One afternoon, standing in a room full of light and noise, you felt a perfect stillness settle upon you. Not peace, but an utter depletion of the mechanism. The thought came unbidden, as quiet as dust settling. I cannot lift another thing. It was the most terrifying yet most truthful sentence you had spoken to yourself in years. This deep, ingrained guilt, this crippling sense of moral failure, is the toxic exhaust of the relentless engine of perfection. It is a panic wired into your bones by the cult of busy, a system that judges rest as resistance and silence as stagnation. You have been taught, through digital metrics and cultural narratives, that your value is tied to the length of your to-do list, the immediacy of your response, and the proximity of your results to an unreachable, airbrushed standard of flawlessness. This system demands constant high output and endless energy, never accounting for the organic human need for recovery. Who wrote this script of ceaseless effort? An abstract, faceless infrastructure that sees your time and mental health as disposable fuel. The notion that stopping is weakness is the greatest lie whispered by exhaustion. True weakness is the inability to recognize and honor your own fundamental physiological need for repose. You are not obligated to meet these demands. You are not a cog. You are a complex, breathing ecosystem. The shame you feel is a conditioned response, not a true feeling. It is the echo of 1,000 silent expectations that are not yours to uphold. Stopping in this context is not a betrayal. It is a declaration of autonomy. It is the radical, strongest thing you can do, choosing self-preservation over systemic compliance. You must understand the history of the clock that drives you. It is not the ancient solar-powered rhythm of your ancestors, but the frantic, precise ticking of the industrial age, accelerated and weaponized by the digital age. You are subjected to the myth of hyper-efficiency, The fallacy that every waking moment must be monetized, optimized, or dedicated to self-improvement. Leisure is reframed as side hustle, solitude as networking preparation, and stillness is labeled as lag. The boundary between the work self and the private self has been aggressively dismantled, leaving you permanently on call, permanently available, and permanently accountable to the abstract demands of the market, the algorithm, or the competition. This colonization of your interior life is insidious. It tricks you into believing that the anxiety you feel when you sit still is yours, when in reality, it is a programmed alarm bell installed by the very infrastructure that exploits your energy. They have succeeded in making your own necessary rest feel like a form of theft, a withdrawal from a collective output you owe. The antidote to this deeply embedded shame is a radical act of refusal. You must choose to unplug your soul from their grid. You must recognize that you are not a limited resource to be consumed, but an inexhaustible source that needs careful tending. You must deliberately fail their test of non-stop performance. In the quiet revolution of your own withdrawal, you reclaim the fundamental sovereignty over your time and your being. The fear of falling behind is the system's most potent weapon. It creates a phantom race where success is always just one more email, one more late night, one more skipped meal away. You look over your shoulder and see shadows, the imagined others who are supposedly thriving on the impossible pace. You believe that stepping away for a pause means forfeiting ground, giving your rivals the advantage, ensuring your irrelevance. But the race itself is rigged. The finish line moves the moment you approach it, and the prize is rarely the fulfillment you seek. It is often just a new, heavier set of responsibilities. The true, sustainable path is not a sprint against others, but a long, slow walk in alignment with your authentic self. The only ground you risk losing during your pause is the toxic, crumbling foundation of unsustainable effort. The moment you step off the treadmill, you realize the shadows you saw were merely projections of your own guilt, not real competitors gaining vital distance. For those who win the long game, the secret is not constant speed, but superior pacing and intentional breaks. The most successful people are not those who never rested, but those who mastered the art of profound, guiltless recovery. This is the precipice where self-compassion is born, or where the spiral begins. For too long, you had confused pausing with quitting. You feared that if you stepped off the track even for a moment, the world would speed past, leaving you eternally behind, or worse, that you would discover you preferred the silence, and the act of return would become impossible. But the truth is, the tired mind asks for a pause, not for surrender. It asks for a reset, not a rejection of the path. Imagine the sea, vast and boundless. It is the very definition of persistence, capable of wearing down cliffs and shaping continents. Yet, even the ocean knows rest. It draws back from the shore in the ebb tide. It rests in the profound, silent darkness of its deepest trenches. The water does not disappear. It simply gathers itself. It redistributes its immense energy, preparing for the inevitable, powerful return of the flood. Your pause must be like the ebb tide, deliberate, dignified, and temporary. This is where you must learn the language of grace. Stop the self-interrogation. Stop using the word should like a lash across your own shoulders. You do not owe the world a constant state of productivity, nor do you owe your future self an apology for recognizing your limits today. Your worth is not a metric tied to your output. It existed before you started the race, and it will remain when you choose to stand still. The pause is not the end of the story. It is a vital, necessary paragraph break. It is the moment you step out of the blinding, fluorescent lights of urgency and into the gentle, shaded light of your own quiet room. This is the moment to initiate the rewilding of the soul, the deliberate act of disconnecting from the noise and returning to the quiet, natural state of being. To pause correctly is to engage in non-transactional time. It is to resist the urge to turn rest into another item on your to-do list, a power nap optimized for 5 minutes, a meditation session aimed at higher focus, a weekend trip designed to generate perfect, envy-inducing photos. True rest is useless and therefore sacred. It is the glorious, inefficient waste of time that nourishes the deep wellspring of creativity and perspective. In this sacred time, You are invited to reclaim the senses that work has dulled. Sit in a patch of sunlight and notice the complex, shifting architecture of the dust motes suspended in the air. This is not meditation. It is simply observing without commentary or judgment. Listen to a piece of music not as background noise, but as a deliberate structure of sound, tracing the bass line, anticipating the crescendo, allowing the vibration to settle the tremor in your nerves. Take a meal and eat it slowly, tasting every complex layer of flavor, honoring the simple biological contract between your body and the nourishment it deserves. This is the work of presence. To root yourself so firmly in the now that the screaming demands of the yesterday and the tomorrow become irrelevant. You are allowing the mind, which has been functioning as a high-speed processor, to revert to its natural state as a soft, reflective pool. You might discover a long-forgotten self here, a self that loved the smell of rain, or the sound of a certain kind of music, or the simple luxury of a long, unhurried walk with nowhere to go. This forgotten self is waiting patiently. It does not judge the weariness you carry. It simply holds out a hand, offering a different kind of strength, the strength of presence. It is the self that remembers play, not structured games with objectives, but the pure, aimless curiosity of childhood. When was the last time you drew something terribly, without artistic aspiration? When did you stare at the clouds and name their shapes with absurd, ephemeral titles? This pure, unproductive play is the therapy that undoes the programming of perfection. It reminds you that existence itself is the primary value, and achievement is merely a pleasant, secondary outcome. The guilt will come knocking. It will whisper familiar lies. You are wasting time. Others are working harder. You are falling behind. When it does, do not fight it. Simply acknowledge the voice as an old, misguided protector trying to keep you safe by keeping you running. Thank it for its concern and then firmly close the door. Reiterate the truth. Rest is not laziness. It is resource management. It is not retreat. It is strategic replenishment. It is the highest form of self-care because it is the essential precondition for all future endeavors. You are not a failure for needing it. You are exceptionally wise for choosing it. This rest is an active choice. It requires more courage than continuing the exhausting sprint. The courage to be still in a world obsessed with movement. The courage to be quiet when every screen demands your attention. The courage to trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by simply because you stopped for a moment to tie your shoes, to catch your breath, to heal a blister. The process of detoxing from the cult of busy is painful. The stillness initially feels like a void. When the noise of productivity fades, the internal noise of unprocessed emotion rushes in. This is why many fear the pause, not the rest itself, but the difficult conversations they must finally have with their own unexamined pain and fear. Be brave enough to meet this internal rush. Allow the grief, the resentment, the old hurts to surface. The pause is not just physical, it is spiritual excavation. You are digging out the roots of the fear that made you run in the first place. You are clearing the debris so that when you eventually restart, you are motivated by genuine purpose, not by the frantic avoidance of emptiness. So, let the armor fall away. Allow yourself to be transparently tired. Confess your fatigue not as a flaw, but as a statement of fact. I have been working hard, and now I need to mend. This mending is slow and it is unspectacular. It is the steady process of recalibrating your inner compass. It is about drinking water and sleeping deep. It is about reading words that have nothing to do with your objectives and spending time with people who love you for who you are, not for what you accomplish. It is the gentle reintroduction of joy, not as a motivator for work, but as a reward for being alive. You are establishing a new covenant with yourself, one based on reverence, not exploitation. You are agreeing to tend to the fire rather than perpetually attempting to burn the house down to keep warm. You are not defined by the speed of your recovery either. The healing process is not a linear graph of improvement. It is a wandering, sometimes circuitous river. There will be days when the energy returns in bright, shimmering bursts, and days when you feel the old exhaustion settling back like a heavy cloak. Embrace the unevenness. Every step, even the backward ones, is part of the journey toward understanding your own rhythm. The moment you stop judging the pace of your recovery, you accelerate the process itself. And then, one morning you will wake up and the compulsion will be gone. The desperate must will have transformed into a genuine want. You will feel a subtle, tectonic shift, the passion returning, not as a frantic demand, but as a quiet, sustainable flame. The colors will look brighter again. The path, which once seemed like a featureless uphill climb, will reveal its original contours and the reasons you first set foot upon it. You will return to the world of effort, but you will not be the same. You will move with the dignity of a person who owns their time, not one who is owned by it. Your productivity will no longer be a measure of self-worth, but merely a function of your inspired state. You will know, deep in your core, that the most revolutionary act in a demanding world is the courageous choice to rest without guilt. Your strength is now built on the bedrock of self-awareness, not the shifting sands of exhaustion. You realize the pause did not shrink your world, it expanded it. It did not weaken your resolve, it purified it. It taught you that resilience is not the ability to never stop, but the profound ability to know exactly when to stop and how to start again, restored and whole. The lesson is simple yet revolutionary. You are not a machine to be driven until it breaks. You are a living entity that requires cycles of effort and repose. The weight is lifted, not because the tasks disappeared, but because you finally understood that the most important resource you possess is yourself. And sometimes, the most productive thing you can do for your future is nothing at all. Go forward now, when the time is right, with a newly calibrated sense of self, knowing that every time the tired mind asks for a break, you will honor that request with wisdom, not with worry. You will choose the pause, and never again mistake it for surrender. If you love this story and want to hear more like it, please hit that subscribe button. It truly means the world to us and helps us grow. And hey, while you're at it, let's aim for 50 likes on this video. Help us smash that goal.